Do you ever tire of being a lawful citizen, of stopping at stop signs and riding slowly through school zones and not stunting past police cars? Yeah, me too. On this episode of El Camino, we leave the pavement and all those rules behind.
El Camino is brought to you by Yamaha. Revs your heart. Scott Sports. No shortcuts. Best Western Hotels and Resorts.
Welcome to El Camino. I'm Neil Graham. Most disciplines in motorcycling welcome riders of varying skill sets. You can ride a motorcycle around a road racing track at the speed of a kid on a bicycle. I've seen it. But there are some things that regular folks like you and I just can't do. Chief among them is the scrub, which is when a motocrosser flies over a massive jump, but they don't go straight up, they fly kind of sideways, sort of. Let's leave it to Cole Thompson, last year's Canadian motocross champ, to give us the lowdown on flying below the radar.
The purpose of the scrub is to gain speed and gain time. When you jump something straight, your suspension works properly. It goes in, it compresses, and then when it decompresses, it shoots you up. And it gives you that hang time, that height. You know, kind of like a pogo stick, essentially. Now, when you go to scrub, what you're doing, you're still getting that compression, but instead of you using it and shooting you up, you're shooting it to the side. Carrying your speed and you're shooting it out to the side. So when you scrub, you carry twice the speed you would as if you weren't scrubbing. And what it is you're able to use that momentum to do the jump, not the suspension. It's more or less like hitting a corner with both your wheels on an angle and you're leaning into a corner, versus just trying to ride perfectly straight up, like you're just trying to get around it. If you look at the way a rider takes off when he goes to scrub the jump versus when he just jumps it normally, you're not essentially going up anymore, you're going out and then back. You're curving the jump versus going straight up, straight down. And what that allows you to do is carry more momentum. You're going basically off the jump at half the height and twice the speed.
Jake and I had never met Cole before we went to his house to film what you just watched. But then Cole and his wife Chloe told us his story, and it's just too good not to share. Picture this. You've just won the Triple Crown Championship on a factory KTM. You get your picture taken with a goofy 6-foot-long check that's made out to you in the sum of $100,000. Life is good. And then Cole hears that KTM wants to talk for a contract extension. Right?
And then I got a phone call. I was fired.
Come again?
I was fired.
Now, why would Cole get fired when he was the best? Because if you've won the title, you're the best. That's how racing success is measured. Cole, what exactly happened?
So when I first got the call, it was, in my understanding, that there was going to be a negotiation. I knew I wouldn't have the same kind of contract, or maybe even the same length of contract. I just figured maybe because of me winning, there would be somewhat of an extension, or maybe a branch that we can, or something we can work on together. And it was clear, it was no. You're not riding for us, you're not racing for us anymore, and we thank you. And I was grateful, you know, I'm thankful that they did believe me in all those years. I'd been replaced by, you know, somebody younger, which, you know, that's sports, you know, especially in racing, you're only as good as your last race, and the kid that I was being replaced by had beat me in the championship in motocross. So he was their guy that they felt was going to go on, and even though he didn't win the whole championship, he just, you know, he beat me in motocross portion, and he was younger. You kind of get taken back being like, am I that old already? Because I didn't feel it. Like, I still don't feel it. Like, sitting here, I'm like, I can tell you I'm 29 years old. I still feel 18, you know? And body-wise, I still feel relatively young. I've been lucky to not have many injuries. And mentally, I'm 18, you know? Like, I'm still as hungry as I was when I was that age and wanting to prove myself. So it's hard when you get called and told that you're not gonna be here anymore. So it's frustrating, and I think that's
I get frustrated because he's won, whether it's motocross, supercross, like more races and championships than anybody else has ever won for KTM in Canada.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you had that sense of like, I thought this was mutual, and then, you know, I'm happy, you're happy, but obviously you have it one-sided. And we talked about it afterwards, like, it's crazy that you can just be cut and done. Like, just a phone call, just, no, you're done. You know, it's not like you get to argue your case like, hey, you should sign me. If they're done with you, it's up to them.
Like, they were good to us over the years, don't get me wrong, but I feel like towards the end, when they brought someone else in, they were more concerned about the other person than having him as the main rider.
Yeah, it was almost like they'd already been like, all right, well, we'll fulfill the contract because he's signed, but we already got our guy for the future. And then when he went out and he was doing well. Like, I'm not gonna take it away from him, he was doing really well. But the amount of effort put into him and me, completely separate. And I think that's what's frustrating for us, and she's seen it a lot too, was at the races, I'd be sitting there trying to figure out how can I make this motorcycle better. And I'd be talking to her, and I'd be talking to Steve, my mechanic, and everybody else on the whole truck was working for this other kid. I never thought that I would be in a position like that, but when it came, it was almost like a sick feeling, but then a couple days later, I'm like, maybe it's for the best. If they don't see value in me, maybe I'll go somewhere else. And fortunately, I never got a call from anybody. I'd called around just to see if I could get some bikes from some other people. Nobody wanted to give me bikes. Nobody wanted to give me anything, and I thought it was crazy. I'm like, here I am, you know, the champion of Canada without even getting a motorcycle. Like, not even able to get anything. Like, not, hey, we'll help supply a bike for you to go race the series next year, or hey, we'll try to come up with something. Just flat no. So that's kind of what led me to going into retirement phase a little bit. And for the 2 months after I finished Supercross, I was we were both in the understanding that's it. You know, like, we're good. We're not gonna chase it. We're not gonna go spend more money to race dirt bikes. It's risky as is. And I'd made out with limited injuries. You know, only had really 1 year of injuries or so. And I was like, it is what it is.
This segment is brought to you by Yamaha. Revs your heart.
When you go, I think, for so long as a factory rider and then it ends, most people just end their career. I know when it ended for me, I figured that was it. I'm just gonna ride for fun. Did what I did in the sport. I wanted to, you know, be a champion, did that. I wanted to win races, I did that, and make a living. And I did all of those things that I initially had as a kid. I was content with where I was at in life. And maybe 2 months passed and just got this itch. And I was like, you know, never wanted to go back to racing so bad, but had no support. No team, no direction. I had my wife, and I was telling her almost every day, I was like, okay, if I don't get things figured out by this day, we're just not gonna race anymore. My brother has 2 bikes. They're 250s. I need 250s. They're Yamahas. I've never ridden Yamaha. What if I take them, go south, and go line up at Supercross? And I think she thought I was probably joking at the beginning. I think she probably was like, yeah, for sure. And I said, no, like, seriously, we'll do this. You know, we'll get those 2 bikes loaded up and we'll drive south. And we'll go to the track and we'll make it happen. We get 2 days into Oklahoma and I'm riding and everything's great. I'm in t-shirt, shorts. I said, look at us. Like, you know, we're laughing and stuff and like, life's great. Not even a day later after saying how nice the weather is and everything, we get hit with the biggest ice storm that year. Everything's frozen. The motorhome freezes, everything freezes. Our heater won't work. And I'm like, I'm almost in tears at this point. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, it's a snowstorm. We're driving across, just trying to live out a dream of mine. With bikes in the back that I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to do anything on. And these bikes were completely stocked, didn't have parts. Didn't even know what parts to order. Then we get out to California, and I remember I was like, all right, we're out here. I had 3 days to build a bike, find all the parts I needed, and show up and race the best in the world. At that point, I think I had 10 hours on these bikes altogether, ride time, maybe. And I was having to put together a bike and go line up against the best. And I remember I didn't have time to find a mechanic.
Do you know what you're doing?
Yeah. I didn't have time to figure out all the little parts that you needed to go into a race team. I just knew that I had bikes. And I didn't even tell her, but I was like, she's gonna be a mechanic. I'd already made it up in my head.
I never thought that I would be his mechanic, and I never wanted to, but it was forced upon me. A normal mechanic works on their bike, washes their bike, does everything, but my version of the mechanic, he does all the work and I hold the bike. My first time ever being a mechanic was at the biggest race in the world, basically. And you walk out, there's hundreds of thousands of people, lights, sounds, fireworks. It's really nerve-wracking, scary. I was sick to my stomach. So we were on the line for a main event, and all the bikes were started up. The 30-second board was out, and he was still gone taking a pee. And I was standing there, the only mechanic on the line, holding the bike, waiting for him to pee. I was freaking out. He may have got yelled at, but he did good.
Yeah.
I think that was your best race, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You needed a little bit of motivation.
Getting there, regardless of results, was a win. Didn't even matter. I even told her that. I said, we're here. Like, you know, how many people aren't here because they had the same situation I had. Always easy to stay in your comfort zone, just not mess with it. I've never felt so rewarded for getting outside my comfort zone. I was proud of her, like, to take on the role of just even going down to that gate. I mean, it's intimidating. And at the same time, you know, we were joking, we were like, she's a top 10 mechanic, you know, and has never spun a wrench or washed a bike, but that's what it was about, was just being like two individuals that like wanted to take a journey. And I thought, what's the worst that would come? And sure enough, we got out there and, you know, we clicked off a few races. Next thing you know, I'm 9th in points. And to put that into perspective, like the people I'm ahead of, you know, get paid $300,000, $400,000 just salary and millions in bonuses. And there were some weekends that were better than others, but regardless, being on the gate and racing the best that was the whole purpose. So.
Aged out at 29, I envy Cole's skill, but not the cruelty of professional racing. It's time for Jake and I to say so long to the scrub and hello to something a little more our speed, something without speed.
This segment is brought to you by Best Western Hotels and Resorts.
Motorcycling is full of oddities, and one of the oddest is trials riding. There's no such thing even as a trials race. It's a trials competition. Because even race walkers, which is the strangest thing ever, even race walkers move faster than a trials bike. So what's the challenge of riding slowly? When a motorcycle is pretty much stopped, there's no gyroscopic effect from the rotating wheels to keep you upright, which means you need a functioning sense of balance to ride a trials bike well. Let's see how this goes.
We have the Montesa 300RR here with us today. Not intimidating by any stretch. There's going to be a nice, smooth power delivery. They're very linear, very controllable, very confidence-inspiring.
Steve Wakehamp started Trail Tours, which is a few hours northeast of Toronto, over 20 years ago. They rent off-road bikes and give instructions on everything from these trials bikes to big ADV machines.
All right, I'm going to hold the bike for you. If you can just hop on. Good. Yeah, balls to the feet. Very good. Yeah, that's perfect. You have your legs are perpendicular to the ground. That's exactly what you're doing. And I know it might feel awkward and it might get you sore, but after a while you get used to it.
How come there's no seat?
Well, Neil, there's no seat because you don't need a seat because you're never sitting down. In this position, the bike is gonna lean down into the turn just a bit, but your body's gonna stay upright. This is the hardest discipline of all. That's why people tend to be intimidated by it, but they don't need to be because they can just ride around slowly, doing everything at a slow pace. It's very, very safe. And when you can turn really, really slow and smooth, imagine what you can do going quicker. Going quicker around a corner with your centrifugal motion of the wheels going, that's what's keeping you up. If you can do it slow, that's requiring like balance, and it's a lot of concentration. If you can handle one of these, everything else is easy. You're still on the inside. You have to take your hips and bend them right out to the outside. You're putting your butt out on the turn. Exactly, your hips need to be out on the turn. Very good. Yeah, very good, Neil. You got it. Always think about sticking your butt out on a turn.
Steve has the laid-back demeanor of a door-to-door salesman who's been turned away too many times, which makes him an ideal riding instructor. He's patient, encouraging, he gives useful feedback. Steve would make a great alderman.
We're gonna work on a thing called suspension loading. You're gonna just extend everything so that your arms are bent just a little bit, so you're pushing down.
Before you go up to the log, you gotta preload to bring up the front end.
Yes. And all I want you to do is to feel the timing of the suspension preloads. You're not gonna leave the ground, you're not gonna go anywhere. You're just going to get the bike to go up and down with the suspension. Yeah, that's really good throttle control. You're doing it nice and slow. If you're going too fast, just put the front brake on a bit before you do it. Slow right down and then go. Good, Jake. Good. Neil, you got it. You're not doing it too high. That's perfect. There's a little pile of logs right there. So it's like a little step up from what we just did. Roll over it. If you want to do a little kind of a lift, you can. What that does a lot of times, that little lift, is it creates ground clearance for your bike. And then your plate doesn't hit the log or the rock. You're just gonna get over it. No clinking, no clanging. It's nice and smooth. There's a log in the grass. That's a really fun one. You just kind of ride over it and you feel amazing when you do that little stuff. Like it's nothing, but you feel empowered by getting over all these obstacles with these bikes. It just becomes so easy once you kind of get confident and comfortable and everything's flowing. You're just like, oh, give me more, give me more. Whee!
This segment is brought to you by SMK Helmets. SMK is you.
Now this guy knows his stuff. Spaniard Tony Bow is the best trials rider in the world. He can even ride a bike where mountain goats fear to tread. His bike is an extension of his limbs. But where is he when I need him?
Okay, boys, this is the starting line.
This is a challenge that will encompass all of the skills that you've learned today. Balance, throttle control, clutch control, brake control. Whoever wins this is the champion of the day. Okay, are you guys ready for this? Okay, here we go. On your marks, get set, go!
Now isn't this exciting? All those years of trying to go faster has led me to this. Now riders like Tony Bow, you remember him, can stand stationary on their foot pegs until the snow flies, and that's Spanish snow. Without forward motion, those embarrassing little squirts, the bike will fall. The rider must be the balancer and the counterbalancer, unless you're me and do neither.
Oh, I'm getting my ass kicked. I'm beating you, Jake. Hurry up.
No lame attempt at humor can save the day. You can see I'm winning when that's not the point. The goal is not to win. And that's when trials begins to mess with your head, just a little bit. You know, with all this time to kill, I can tell you that little Jake here is the heir to an insurance empire. Seriously. He's just slumming it here. I'll likely end up as Jake's gardener, if he'd even hire me. Jake is good at throwing sofas onto bonfires, and he can ride trials. Sadly. Oh look, an end, the finish line.
Winner! Congratulations, Jake.
There we go.
Nice job,
Victory.
man.
Sucks to be you.
Oh, I got lucky.
You're just a sore loser.
Even with special extra instruction and my insistence on making it a best 4 out of 7, I still won the slow race, which means I lost the slow race. And Jake taunted me far less than he had a right to, given how I'd have tormented him had I won. I mean, lost the slow race.
No, I was trying to, I didn't want to go over, so I thought I'll fall before I go over.
If you can't win the race, you just crash instead.
Exactly.
I like that way of thinking. It's all or nothing.
In no
That's the way.
situation, it's nothing.
Bastard.
What's the key to trials riding? I have no idea. But that didn't stop Steve from encouraging me or Jake from riding circles around me. And even my tumbles didn't hurt. You're going so slowly. I've had worse falls in the bathtub. Thank you for watching El Camino.
Clothing was provided by Importations Tebow, service you can trust. El Camino was brought to you by the Motorcycle Super Show, the big one by the airport. Dainese, 75 years of performance. Hudson Henderson, your insurance provider for motorcycle, power sports, and marine.